where the market actually finally prices us at the end, big move, that was the reaction. So that is a great example of some investors knowing something that other investors didn't know yet. You gotta be a little bit careful because the SEC has regulated a bunch of this information. You gotta be careful where you get the information. They've regulated this advantage a lot. You can't have proprietary, non-public information and trade on it, at least in the US. You potentially can come up with information that is maybe not public, but doesn't fall into that same issue. All right, next is analytical advantages. See something the market doesn't see. We have a great story in the book, highly recommended, is this sort of notion that a disease goes around and everybody becomes colorblind. You happen to have whatever it is, you're immune to the disease. You look at a disc, you see 12, right? Everybody sees 12 on the right. They're like, well, that's obvious. Everybody else sees, they can't see the 12. There is a 12 on the left, you just can't see it. This is what it's like when you're an analyst and you have a variant perspective. You see something that other people don't see. You run around, you tell people, they're looking at you like you're crazy. As people's color comes back, their ability to see color comes back, either through some sort of medicine or just naturally comes back, they start to see the 12 and they're like, oh yeah, of course I see it. That's an analytical advantage. You see something the market hasn't yet seen, presumably they will see it over time. Great example, another example we use in the book, a guy named Dan Kruger. Dan Kruger, a former student of Paul's, he was looking at Herbalife bonds. They were issued by the International Corp. This is the time when Ackman was out with his big short story on Herbalife. The bonds traded down significantly. Dan did a bunch of work and said, they're the international sub, not the domestic sub, won't be affected by any of this anyway. Money's good. He thought the yield, implied yield, was extremely attractive. He bought where the rest of the world was pricing this at what they thought was a 7% yield, he saw as a 12% yield. So he had an analytical advantage. He didn't have any information nobody else had. He just actually went and looked at it. And he realized the market was wrong because they had misinterpreted what Ackman's message was. That's an analytical advantage. No new information, just thought about it differently. The final one is this notion of incorporation. This is a little bit tricky when you're in the business. You see these every once in a while. The great, let me go to the next slide. The great one is March of '09. Phone rings in Omaha. Warren picks it up. Lloyd Blankfeld says, hey, Warren, how would you like to give us $10 billion? And Warren says, where would you like it wired? That was a piece of paper that, I don't know, you probably didn't have 10 billion lying around. Mine was tied up in March of '09, so Lloyd didn't call me. They call Warren. There's some advantage having Warren press release that Buffett's investing. There's some collateral benefit of that, of course. But that's not something that they then floated to the general public and said you could buy. That was only a piece of paper for Buffett. And it was an extremely attractive implied yield. We don't have access to that. So there's somebody who had access, and he earned alpha on that investment, a lot of alpha on that one out before. All right. So I'm going to hand it off to Paul now to talk a little bit about delivery. We talked about security selection. You're going to be very thoughtful about what the portfolio manager wants. Content, you've got to come back and you have to talk about the 4 questions. How much can I make? How much can I lose? Why you've been able to figure out where the market's wrong, and how the next guy's going to figure it out. Final piece is you now have to deliver this message in a pitch of some kind.
Okay, so what you're trying to do when you pitch a stock is that you have the proper security selected, and you have your story down, and you have to present it. So I like to think in extremes. So I kind of thought, okay, if my son is pitching a stock and he's reading it from a script, and Warren Buffett is reading the exact same script, who's going to be more credible? My son or Warren Buffett? Obviously, Buffett is a lot more credible. So what we thought in the book, like to kind of put the idea in your mind, is let's say that you're going on an interview, and the guy asks you to send him a copy of your research report ahead of time. So you put the research report in an envelope, and you could choose one of 5 envelopes, and they all contain the exact same thing. So the portfolio manager gets it on his desk, and which one is he going to want to open first? So the FedEx, like subconsciously, he thinks, okay, someone, it's urgent, they sent it overnight, so it must be important, and they spent money on it, so they must care. So I'll open that one first. Then you have the first class envelope, and that one still looks really, really clean. Now, this one, he's not even gonna wanna touch it because he's gonna be afraid of catching something. And this looks like junk mail, and the other one looks like a personal letter. And if it's a personal letter and he's busy, he's not gonna have time to read it. So, but the envelope contains the exact same research report. So what we thought about, and we did a lot of work into human behavior and cognitive psychology and how people subconsciously think. And we thought that if you're young, you're probably going to be at a disadvantage for a bunch of different reasons, and how can you minimize those disadvantages? Okay, so you are the envelope, and this is my son. And so in the first one, he looks like he rolled out of a club, and he kind of looks like that sometimes, but without the tie. Then the one in the middle, that's kind of what he looks like. And he's 19 years old, and that's appropriate for his age. And then this is kind of a more conservative version. And the interesting thing is, like, obviously you're not going to go into an interview dressed like that, but people my son's age, they like that is so socially acceptable. But you're not pitching to someone your own age, you're pitching to someone my age. And for me, that's not acceptable. That's acceptable. So, and what I would always tell my students is that to achieve the nirvana of dressing, you want a half an hour after the meeting, whoever you met with can't remember what you were wearing. And so how you are dressed has no effect on how they perceive you. Because here, they might look at you and they might say, you know, yeah, he was really able to match that tie and that shirt, and I can't do that. And I'm serious, I can't, like, I dress as boring as could be. You know, but it doesn't, it may look like the guy's willing to take risks. And if you don't want someone that's gonna be on the edge and take risks subconsciously, that's not going to appeal to you. All right, next slide. So what we want to emphasize is that a significant portion of the pitch is nonverbal. So it's more the envelope and not what's in the envelope. So what we go through in the book is we kind of pull apart a meeting that you'll have with the portfolio manager, and there are 6 stages. There's kind of the first glance. So what we try to think about is, okay, you're pitching a stock to a portfolio manager. They sit you down in a conference room, and you're waiting for them. And there's a window in the conference room, and they walk up to it. As soon as they see you, the pitch is started. I mean, the pitch is actually started however you first met them, when they saw your resume, when they spoke to you on the phone, when they met you at a conference. And there's all sorts of subconscious stuff that goes on. So when they see you through the window of the conference room, like if you're kind of like, you know, all slouched over, you know, like you own the place, the guy's going to think, you know, he's a little arrogant. Or if I brought him into a meeting, like, I wouldn't want him sitting like that in front of my clients. So you have a prior engagement, or was that bad?
Sorry.
Yeah, you have a class, or it was that bad?
No.
I'm teasing. Okay. So at first glance, you know, there are all of these subconscious factors that come into play height or weight, attractiveness, clothing, hair, glasses, age, facial features. And there have been a lot of academic studies on every single one of those things. So like since the 1940s, they've done studies on people wearing glasses, and people that wear glasses are perceived as being more intelligent. And
It's true, too.
and it's like I mean I had a friend of mine, and she, you know, wanted to appear more intelligent, and she got glasses that had no prescription in them, and she wear them in the meetings because it works. Then you kind of go into this small talk stage. So they'll walk into the room, they'll shake your hands, they'll say hello, and they're sizing you up, like they're looking at what is the pitch of your voice. Like have you ever like you'll see in movies all the time, like there'll be like this big strong guy, and then all of a sudden he opens his mouth to talk and he has like a high squeaky voice, and it kind of takes you by surprise. So, but it's human nature, and they key onto that. Now you can't change your voice, but your handshake, your eye contact, your posture, you know, your facial expression, all of those things kind of bakes in, and it's part of the pitch. Then you have your 30-second hook, and the way that we break out the structure of the perfect pitch is that you have a 30-second hook, which you give to the portfolio manager to kind of get them interested, and you want to put all of the four answers to all of the four questions in that, in chapter 11. Yeah, chapter 11, we go into all of that. Then you have the 2-minute drill, where they'll be like, okay, I'm interested in the idea, tell me more. And then they'll let you go through and, you know, flesh out your idea a little bit more. And then you have to be able to sustain about 8 minutes of Q&A. And they'll start trying to punch holes. And it's basically tying back to those four questions that you have. And that's where it's becoming less about the nonverbal stuff and more about the content of the message. So they've opened the envelope, and now they're starting to read your report. And then, you know, finally, when you say goodbye and you leave the office, it all switches back to that nonverbal stuff, and it has nothing to do with the pitch. Right, next slide. Okay, so in terms of the nonverbal stuff that's going on in the portfolio manager's mind, what they're trying to determine, they're trying to determine three things. Are you credible? Are you capable? And are you likable? Or trying to determine is even the wrong phrase. They're just building up this assessment. Are you credible? Are you capable? And are you likable? So if we go back to the four questions, there are these nagging questions that the portfolio manager will have in their mind because you can never really answer them completely. And then they have these underlying concerns, like, did he miss anything? Is he right? Can I trust his judgment? Can I trust his research? So that all comes back to capability and credibility. And then likability, whether or not they like you or not, that has an impact on the other two. Because if they like you, if you like someone, you'll believe what they're telling you. If you don't like someone, you're going to question everything that they say. So you want to think when you go into that interview, you know, how can I be, like what defines the likability? And we discussed that more in the book. But the ultimate question is, do I believe him or her? The other thing is that you need to make it really easy for the portfolio manager, because that Dr. No, like, they just, to put an idea into their portfolio, they're putting their livelihood at risk. Because if the stock underperforms, it's going to cause them problems. they're gonna have bad performance, and then they're gonna be living in a box on the street. So they really guard what goes into the portfolio. So you wanna make it very easy for them. And the analogy that we use, and what a lot of students and analysts do when they pitch, is it's just like a puzzle, and they'll just kind of throw all the pieces down on the table, and they'll say, here, you figure it out. And they don't have the time or the patience to put that puzzle together, so you have to put it together for them. And if you put just half of the puzzle together, they can't see the whole picture. So you really have to put everything together for them so they can completely understand it. So what we recommend is that when you go in to give a pitch, and this could be during a stock pitch competition, you can use this for a variety of different things. You really just need 8 slides. I mean, in reality, you're probably going to have more, but you really just need 8. And that's the basic financial information. You need to explain what the company does.